Hello everybody, and welcome to the final part of the Fire Emblem Fates Conquest unit tier list. So last time we went through the first generation from chapter 10 all the way to Izana at the end of chapter 23, and now we are going to move on to doing all of the child units in the game. And sort of, we're basically going to be ranking them the same way that I ranked the first generation characters. And we're going to be ranking them assuming that you're doing, fairly optimal pairings. I'm not going to assume that you're going to make Corrin, like, everyone's kid, or everyone's parent, rather, because that'd be a little silly, but, we're going to be assuming that, like, okay, like, we're not gonna assume that you're gonna do, like, Nyx's Velouria. Like, obviously we're gonna give Velouria, like, a good parent when we rate her. And same goes for all the other kids. So, let's hop into it with Kana. Kana is a unit that I'm not sure how to feel about, because the thing about Kana is that I feel like unless you have Corrin marry a Gen 2 unit and make Kana a Gen 3, I feel like Kana is always kind of underwhelming stat-wise. Their talent is the same as Corrin's, but they don't have the same. Well, here's the thing, right? It gives them the sort of similar utility that Corrin has, where, someone can, like, marry them or A+ them and get Corrin's talent, because it's also Kana's talent, because, Nor Noble is not inheritable, or it's not, it can't be passed on through friendship and partner deals, so they have that utility. This is really hard to rank them. I think I'm going to put them in B-, because I think normally, in terms of, like, combat potential, they're here, but because of the whole talent thing, and they can pass a lot of, like, they can pass a unique class to another kid, I think they go here. You can make them, like, a really good combat unit if you want. It just takes a lot of investment, like marrying male Corrin to, like, Elise Ophelia, and then making Kana, like, a 11 sword user. Like, that works. But overall, it's like, I just feel like in terms of combat, it's like, why bother using Kana when Corrin's almost always going to be better? But they have that class utility, so I'll put them in B-. Next is Dwyer. So Dwyer is interesting because his growths are actually, both his growth and his bases, they vary quite a bit depending on his mother, and he actually can be, like, pretty good magically if he has a magical mother, like, say, Felicia, or Nyx or something, but he could also be really good physically if he has, like, Azura as a mother, say, and he's a little limited at first because he does join as, like, a troubadour, but he will always, because he joins as a troubadour and he auto levels staff weapon rank as the game progresses, he will always, at the very least, have the staff utility. And, if you go Butler or Strategist, you have permanent 1-2 range. And then, he can inherit his mother's class, like if you marry Jacob to, say, Camilla, you can make him a really good, like, Wyvern Lord or Malignite. Marry Jacob to Felicia. He can go into, like, Bonite or something. Well, you're probably doing Strategist, actually, if he's marrying Felicia, but, he can go Sorcerer or Dark Knight with Nyx as a mother. He has a few options, but he'll always have the staff utility. And actually, like, it's pretty easy. Like, if you want to use the Bifrost, you can reach S rank staffs with just one arm scroll, which is pretty nice. Because he can pretty reliably hit A stabs by the time you get the Bifrost. So, I'll put him in B+. I like Dwyer quite a bit, I think. Next is Sophie. Sophie... So Sophie is kind of similar to her dad in that she's pretty well-rounded. However, has a bit more of a sort of glass cannon-ish sort of set of stats. She has worse defense than Silas, but better strength. And depending on her mother, her growths can be kind of crazy. In particular, I think, like, Effie, Camilla, Azura, and Mozu are all really good, and I guess also Perry, but there's a bit of class overlap there. So, she can be really, really strong depending on the mother and depending on the skills that she gets. Because she starts with Elbow Room and Shelter, which is already really good. But also, she can inherit Quick Draw from Mozu, or the Knight skills if she has Effie as her mother and promotes to Great Knight. Or what else? Like, Trample if Camilla is her mother, or she can S-rank Percy or Siegbert for Strength +2 and Trample. You can actually... I actually really like Mozu as a mother for Sophie, because obviously you get Aptitude, but you can also pass down Quick Draw, and then get like Life and Death later, and then stack that with Elbow Room, and then marry Percy or Siegbert for Trample and Strength +2, and just stack a bunch of stats and just wreck shop. Honestly, it's pretty viable to just drop Silas for Sophie, like once you recruit Sophie, especially depending on the mother, so I'm actually going to put her in an A. She doesn't have the early game contribution that Silas does, but you can unlock Sophie fairly early on, so yeah, I'll put her there. Next is Percy. So Percy has, I think, probably the best availability out of any of the child units. Well, that's not true. I guess it's Kana, depending on, like, if you marry Corn to the first servant or something, and then I guess also Dwyer, technically. But Percy, something that a lot of players will do is they'll marry Arthur to Effie, because they can start their support on their join chapter together, and they have a fast support, so it only takes, like, 6 battles. So you could potentially get Percy, like, right after Chapter 10 or Chapter 11, which is pretty early for a child unit. And that availability helps him out a lot. In terms of stats, he's actually kind of like a better Baruka, which is funny, because not only does she get outclassed by Camilla, but she also gets outclassed by Percy. Really good defense and luck, as opposed to, you know, Baruka, who has defense and skill. But unlike Baruka, he can actually have pretty solid strength depending on his mother, like, say, Effie. Or pretty solid speed if his mother is someone like Selena. Or both if his mother is like Camilla. And his class set is pretty good too, Wyvern Rider and Fighter, just like Baruka. Except he can also get, like, Mercenary if, you know, Selena's his mother, or Knight if Effie is. And, funnily enough, if you get him a magical mother, like, say you do Elise x Arthur, right? Because, you know, they join in the same chapter and they also have a fast support. So you can get Percy at the same time as Effie Percy, but Elise Percy can actually make, like, a pretty solid Malignite. And, you know, that's pretty solid. Honestly... You can even get him to, like, if you make Effie his mother, you can even inherit, like, Quick Draw if you do Mozu friendship with Effie, which bumps up his damage output by quite a bit. And then you can get, like, Soul, which works great with his stat spread, and, you know, he has 2 rallies in his kit. Also, if you make Azura or Baruka the mother, he can inherit Falcon Knight, and he can get 3 rallies in his kit: Rally, Strength, Speed, and Defense. which is a really good set of rallies. Baruka Percy will have a ton of defense, and then Azura Percy will have some pretty solid speed. So it's kind of up to you what you want to do in terms of in that way. He's a child unit who can work with a lot of mothers, but his best mother definitely, I think, is Effie. Put him in great. We'll put him next to Dwyer. We'll put him above Dwyer. Why not? The availability really helps him out. And Wyvern's a better class than Troubadour. I think most people will agree with me on that. Hoo boy. Ophelia. Ophelia Dusk. Best child unit in the game? Probably. Here's the thing. Ophelia's bad with most mothers, but again, like I mentioned with Odin and Leo, magical mothers not super high in demand. So it's not that hard to get a really good mother for Ophelia. Elise is obviously her best mother, but Nyx also works, Felicia also works. Female Corrin also works if you want to marry Odin. I don't know how controversial this would be, but here's the thing, right? Ophelia, super easy to turn into a super sorcerer. If you're not familiar with the concept of a super sorcerer, basically, sorcerers have the highest magic in the game. Magic is a great weapon type because it hits on resistance, which is typically lower than defense, and has permanent 1-2 range, and there's a lot of good tomes in Conquest, like the Calamity Gate, and the Horse Spirit, and the Lightning Tome, all of which you get from Ophelia's Paralog, so you'll never have Ophelia without those tomes. She almost always hits her magic cap, which Elise Ophelia has something like a magic cap of 41 in Sorcerer. And then obviously you can go over that with like Rally Magic from Azana and stuff. And then she gets Vantage and Life and Death in her base kit. You can very easily have her inherit Vantage from Odin, and she can use Nosferatu decently in the mid-game, and then she gets Life and Death, and she just destroys everything. And with Elise as her mother, she'll have pretty solid luck, pretty solid speed. Yeah, Ophelia, I think, is one of the easiest units to just break the game in half with. And it's if she has the right mother, but it's not hard to get her the right mother. And it's honestly not even, like, that much investment. Like, you can get, like, you can invest even more to hit some, like, bigger stat thresholds, like on Lunatic, which is kind of necessary. Like, you can get Trample from marrying Percy, or get, like, Tome Fair. Well, I guess Tome Fair is only possible if you marry her to male Corrin. But, yeah, like, Trample from Percy, or Strong Riposte from Soliel, which is useful with, like, the Vantage build. And just in general, she's just so strong. And she's one of the earlier child units that you get, because Odin comes fairly early in Chapter 8. This might be a little controversial, but I think she's here. Just for how hard she destroys the late game. She's definitely the best mage in Conquest, I think. Better than Leo, better than Odin, better than Elise. If you could argue that she's like here at the top of A. But I think she's bottom of S. I think she's bottom of S. Not as good as a Dancer, not as good as a Avatar, not as good as these two, right? But for how hard she destroys the late game, which is difficult, by the way. Not every Fire Emblem game has a difficult late game, but this Conquest does. Absolutely. And for how easy she makes it with tools that she always has in her base kit. Like, it's hard to say no to that. Next is Nina. Nina is really fun to use. Nina is the daughter of Niles, so again, availability, not the best because she is a Gen 2 unit, but she has better availability compared to someone like, say, Ignatius or Forrest or Velouria or Siegbert. She can actually be physical or magical depending on the mother, just like Dwyer. And like Dwyer, she has class options for both because she has either Bow Knight or Adventurer in her base kit. I personally like the magic route with Nina. I particularly like Nyx Nina, and like use the Shining Bow and Adventurer to just destroy things. But you can also do like physical Nina with like Camilla as a mother or Mozu as a mother. Mozu gives her access to Merchant, which she can carry her bow rank into, and she can do Profiteer Spendthrift stuff. Aptitude Nina has like some crazy growths. And you can also pass down like Quick Draw to boost her damage output. Also, if Nyx is her mother, she'll pass down Diviner, so that's actually... I was actually wrong in the last video when I said that Corrin, like Diviner or Shrine Maiden Corrin was the only one who could get Rally Magic outside of Izana. Nyx Nina can also get Rally Magic. Which is actually something that I like to do, like pass down Malefic Aura and Rally Skill from Niles and Nyx. And then just have Adventure Nina with like the Shining Bow. And like Rally Skill, Rally Magic, Malefic Aura, Movement +1, Pass. And, you know, just a really good staff user and a really good Shining Bow user. But you can also go physical. I think she's solidly B+. I think she's pretty great. Pretty fun, too. You definitely, like, try Nina if you haven't. She's fun. Next is Shigure. So Shigure is Azura's son, which puts him in a weird spot because, it can be hard, actually, to get Azura S supported with someone. Because singing is just so important. It's so important, and you're going to be singing for a bunch of different people. It's kind of hard in a lot of maps to consistently sing to one person over and over, especially in, like, Chapter 10. But, you know, you can get it done. You can do, like, Jacob Azura pretty easily, or, like, Corrin X Azura pretty easily. And there's a few good options for Shigure. The main thing that makes him good is that he's one of the few ways you can get access to rally speed, outside of, like, Selena, or, like, Laszlo with Selena as his wife, or obviously Soleil if she's their kid. Outside of that, or reclassing Azura outside of Songstress, or Corrin, obviously, yeah, it's pretty much, yeah, like, Shigure is one of the few ways to get rally speed. And rally speed's really strong. I particularly like Jacob X, where's Jacob? Here he is. Jacob X, Azura for Shigure, because Jacob can pass down rally resistance, but for some reason, okay, so normally what happens is that if two kids have if a kid and their mother, or in Shigure's case, a kid and their father, have the exact same set of classes, that parent will pass down a third sort of like hidden class. So like with Nyx and Nina, they have the same default class set, so Nyx passes down Diviner. Baruka and Percy have the same class set, so Baruka passes down Sky Knight. Jacob and Shigure do not have the same class set. Shigure is Sky Knight and Troubadour, Jacob is Troubadour and Cavalier. But for some reason, Jacob passes down, like, the third hidden class of Wyvern Rider. I don't know why that happens. You'd think he'd pass down Cavalier. But he doesn't. He passes Wyvern Rider, and that's amazing, because that means Shigure can get Rally Speed, Rally Resistance, and Rally Defense. And that's a great combination of rallies. Also, he has his personal skill, which is neat, which is, whenever he rallies for someone, he heals them a little bit as well, so that's pretty neat. And yeah, Wyvern Shigure, pretty solid. with like the 3 rallies. But there's other options as well. You know, if you wanted more magically inclined Shigure, there's like Leo as a father. If you want, like, I'm trying to think who else makes it good. I like Kaze x Azura, but that's more for Midori than Shigure, but Shigure can still work. He's a kid that's kind of hard to get, again, because Azura has to sing for so many people. But if you do get him, he's pretty strong, and he provides a fairly unique utility in rally speed. Oh yeah, also I forgot to say for Percy, real quick going back to Percy. Percy also is good because of the utility he provides. Actually, because of this, I'm going to bump him up to A tier. He's good because of the utility he provides in giving other Gen 2 units access to Wyvern, and particularly to like Strength plus 2 and Trample. Like Sophie really likes that, Velouria really likes that. You know, Soliel can make use of it. So yeah, he's good for that too, and that's actually why he's an A tier instead of B+. Shigure, I think, is B+. I think B+ is where a lot of the kids are going to end up. But you know who's not going to end up in B+? Midori. First of all, let me start this off with a disclaimer. Midori is one of my favorite units in Fates. With that being said, she is C tier. Probably the worst child unit, at least in Conquest. I think there are worse options in Birthright, but in Conquest, yeah, she's probably the weakest of them all. Midori is very funny. She starts off as an apothecary and can promote into merchant, and she has not only really good luck, but also her personal skill, which adds plus 20 luck to any luck-based abilities, namely Spendthrift and Profiteer, or really just Profiteer. So she can generate gold bars really well. My favorite thing to do is pair Azura with Kaze and pass down luck plus 4. And her luck cap is really high, and she has luck plus 4, and she has her personal skill. She can get gold bars like 60% chance every turn, something like that. And then she can use Spendthrift, or what's probably smarter is generate a bunch of gold bars with Midori, and then get them on a unit who can actually damage stack with Spendthrift well, like Mozu. But she could also give Profiteer and Spendthrift to other units with high luck, like, say, Percy. Percy, with his ridiculous luck, makes pretty good use of Profiteer Spendthrift. You know, so there's an option. Her combat capabilities just are not great, because, like, her best growths are, like, skill, defense, and luck. But mainly, like, skill and luck. And she doesn't have much for speed and strength, unless you... Again, you can make, like, Azura her mother, and that gives her speed, but not much in terms of defense, so she's kind of frail. And in terms of strength, it's like... You're probably not doing Effie x Kaze. I guess you might, but probably not. I think the best, if you're going for, like, actual combat Midori, is probably Camilla x Kaze. And then you pass down, like, Poison Strike and Savage Blow, and she can just deal a ton of chip damage. Yeah, Midori's just not... She's fun, and she's funny, and I like her a lot, but she's kind of why bother. If you're actually trying to play optimally, I think she's why bother. Next up, a unit that is definitely higher than why bother, Soliel. A unit who I really wish you could get pink hair on without having to marry Laszlo to Felicia, which absolutely destroys her growths. But yeah, I guess red hair is better than nothing, right? Soliel is a bit of a glass cannon. Her HP is awful. Her strength and speed are great. Her defense and resistance are okay, but not great. Skill is solid. Luck is solid. Magic is bad. So you really just want to use her as a physical powerhouse. She actually makes a pretty solid Soul Master Ninja if she can get some solid HP from someone like, say, Selena. Which makes Selena probably one of the best mothers for her, but also, like, Azura gives her, like, blinding speed. Charlotte gives her ridiculous strength and the opportunity to become, like, a berserker. There's a, you know, there's a few good mothers for Soleil. I think, where does she go? She's not A tier, but she's not C. She's in one of the B tiers. I think I'll put her in B+. Because, like, she's not amazing, but I think she is pretty great. Just because she does have really high strength and access to pretty solid classes. She's definitely, like, better than her father, Laszlo. Like, that's for sure. I still think the best mage in the game is, or the best mercenary in the game is Selena, though. Next up is Ignatius. So, you look at Benny, right? Benny has ridiculous defense and HP, not great speed, or awful speed, really. Okay strength. Ignatius isn't as tanky as his dad, but still pretty tanky. Has a bit more strength, depending on the mother, and 3 times Benny's speed growth. Which isn't saying much, like, because Benny's speed growth is like 10%. So it's like, woohoo, 60%, or sorry, 30% speed growth on Ignatius, woohoo. But with that being said, I do think Ignatius is, I don't think he's necessarily better or worse than Benny. I think he's a solid alternative. Since he's Benny's child, he obviously has worse availability. I think I'm gonna put him in B-. I think he's one of the weaker child units, but like better than Midori. He's a solid alternative to Benny. If you make someone like Baruka his mother, he gets natural access to Wyvern, and not only natural access to Wyvern, but then he can also marry someone like, say, Velouria for Berserker access, and like, no, he already has Berserker access, actually, because that's his secondary class, never mind. But yeah, he makes really good use of Soul, really good use of just pretty much all the fighter skills, and like, he can stack Axe, Fair, and Trample pretty well as like a Wyvern Lord. But Baruka x Benny isn't the only pairing. You can also do like Parry x Benny, which gives Ignatius a lot of strength. Depending on the mother, he might need Wary Fighter, but also depending on the mother, he might not. Like, for example, with Baruka and Parry, Baruka Ignatius will probably need it, Parry Ignatius will probably not. So it depends on the mother whether or not he needs Wary Fighter, unlike Benny, who absolutely needs it 100% of the time. Yeah, I think he's a solid alternative to his dad, but not necessarily, like, maybe a bit better, but we'll get to that when we order the tiers after Siegbert. Then we get to Forrest. Forrest. So, I like Forrest a lot. I will confess I am a bit biased because I tend to marry Corrin to Leo. I tend to do female Corrin and marry her to Leo. So I'm used to having, and like plus magic Corrin too. So I'm used to having like a plus magic Corrin as the mother for Forrest, which, you know, definitely helps. But like I said before, there's some other solid mothers for Forrest. There's Azura, there's Nyx, there's Felicia. Those are like the big 3 outside of female Corrin. He, similar to Dwyer, he starts off as a troubadour, but unlike Dwyer, he's pretty solidly magically inclined. And he makes a really solid strategist. Always have the staff utility, just like Dwyer. Honestly, him and Dwyer are pretty similar in quite a few ways. Except for some reason, Forrest has, like, amazing res. Like, some of the best res in the entire game. Ridiculous res. And then, like, pretty solid magic as well, if he has the good magical mother. If you're doing, like, Azura Forrest, like, Butler can work. But I generally think Strategist, or maybe even, like, Dark, or, like, Sorcerer is the better move. probably strategist, because, like, yeah, S-rank tomes is nice, but you probably want the staff access instead, because that's what he auto-levels in terms of weapon ranks. But hey, Sorcerer can work. And if you're doing Azura, you can do, like, Falcon Knight or Dark Knight or Butler. What you do kind of depends on the mother, but also, similarly to his aunt Elise, he kind of has, like, the skill issue. Not the... When I say skill issue, I don't mean... Oh god, my brain has been tainted by fighting games. When I say skill issue, I literally mean his skill stat is not the best. So he can have trouble missing sometimes, but you can always pass down Heartseeker from Leo to, like, avert that problem. You know, or, like, if his mother is Nyx, you can do, like, if you're doing, like, Outlaw Nyx, you can do Lucky 7, or even Certain Blow if you do Mozu Friendship with Nyx. Yeah. He's, there are ways to get around his issues with his skill stat. I think probably B+ with Dwyer is probably a good place. The two are kind of interchangeable. You know, they're both troubadours. And they both do pretty well for themselves. Next is Velouria. Probably the second best child unit, I would say. Not as ridiculous as Ophelia, but pretty goddamn ridiculous. Velouria is similar to her father Keaton, but, crucially, does not have nearly the same issue with skill. Really, all of her stats are good except for magic and res. And, like, the magic doesn't matter. She's a physical attacker, so really her only bad stat is res. And depending on the mother, she can be an absolute beast. Mozu Velouria has really good growths and can get life and death. And she can, like, obviously marry Percy for trample and strength +2. Or she can have trample and strength +2 in her base kit if you have Baruka Velouria or Camilla Velouria. And then you can do, like, Effie or Perry Velouria for bonkers strength. By the way, I think it's kind of a crime to keep Velouria in Wolfsegner. She absolutely wants, the higher might and the option of range with, axes in Berserker. And she could also be a really good tank if you do, like, Selena Velouria, right? And she gets, like, the mercenary and the fighter skills if she goes hero. And she gets, like, soul, which she makes great use of, and she has great defense, and I think the best part about Velouria is, like, how many good mothers she has. Like, pretty much any non-magical mother will make her amazing. Camilla. I'm just going down the list here. I'm just looking down the list. Like, Camilla, Effie, Mozu, Selena, Baruka, Perry, Charlotte. Yeah, all the women in the game who aren't magical make great mothers. Anyone who isn't Elise, Nyx, or Felicia. Or Azura. Azura Velouria I don't think is great. But outside of those four, like, anyone makes a good mother for Velouria. And she's so strong. So strong. Not quite as ridiculous as Ophelia, but hey. She's great. And then the last child unit that we have is Siegbert. So, unlike his father Xander, he does not have a Siegfried equivalent. And his growths, like you'd expect from a cav unit, like, say, Silas or Sophie or something, his growths are incredibly uniform. They're incredibly balanced across the board. But I think his niche is that he's a unit who starts off with the cav skills, who makes a really good Wyvern Lord. Like, that's a niche that he has, because, like, Wyvern Lord Xander is good, don't get me wrong, but the lack of permanent 1-2 range, because you can't wield Siegfried, kinda sucks. But with Siegbert, he doesn't have to worry about that, because he doesn't have a Siegfried. So, he can go into Wyvern Lord no problem. He auto-levels both swords and lances with his auto-leveled weapon EXP. So, you can totally just, like, You could totally just go Wyvern Lord and use lances. And then that's great. Unfortunately, Lance is capped at B in Wyvern Lord, so he won't be able to use like the Brave Lance or anything, but he does really well. He's also really good because he's actually one of the better Gen 2 backpacks in my opinion, because he gives, say, someone like Sophie or Velouria more damage because of his personal skill, Gallant, I believe it's called. Like, if he's supporting a female unit, they get, like, I think it's +2 damage dealt. Maybe also -2 damage taken, on top of whatever he gives in terms of parrot bonuses. And he gives Sophie access to Wyvern, and he gives all the other girls, like, say, Velouria or, like, Soliel, access to Cavalier, and, like, with the elbow room. So pretty good, like, backpack for the females of the second generation. And just in general, really, like, pretty solid unit. With that being said, he has some of the worst availability in the game. If it weren't for the availability, I'd put him in B+, but because of that issue, because he's the son of the second, or of the last mandatory party member, like, you're getting him at earliest what? Like, okay, let's assume you do Corrin Exander, which is a fast support, right? Female Corrin Exander. You're getting Siegbert at the earliest, assuming you don't do any paralogs, chapter 20... Let's see, 16. 17. Like, chapter 19, chapter 20. That's fairly late. You can do paralogs to speed that up in between, but, like, yeah, it's gonna be... He's a fairly late joiner, so I'm gonna put him in B-. So that's it for all of the Conquest units. We can go ahead and delete this tier now. That's it for all the Conquest units. Now it's time to order the list. I'm gonna go really quick. D tier, I said I'd put the bottom 3 in D tier. Sorry, next you're being moved down. No, actually, we'll save D tier just for these two. I know I said I was going to put the bottom 3 in there, but I'll put the bottom 2 in there. I think Midori is probably a little better than Nyx, but worse than all these guys. Nyx, by the way, I think is C tier, not D tier, because, like, at the very least, she makes a decent magical backpack for, like, Odin or Leo, who are really good units. So supporting them and giving them a good child is, like, pretty good. So that utility gives her the edge over these two and puts her in C. Then Midori, and then I think C tier looks about good. I do think Baruka is the best C tier unit. B-. I think Gunter's, like, the worst in B- tier. I think Kana's probably pretty high in B-. Keaton has a lot of utility. Ignatius probably worse than Siegbert. Siegbert's probably better than Perry. We'll put Benny and his son next to each other. I'll put Ignatius above Benny just because he is more customizable being a second-gen unit. He also has worse availability, though. Whatever. Ignatius and Benny are, like, equal pretty much in my eyes. One has better stats and customizability. One has better availability. Both are important. Whatever. They're equal in my eyes, but we'll put them like this. Siegbert better than Laszlo? Probably not, because Laszlo has the rally utility. Yeah, B tier B- tier looks good. B+. The tier of the children. We'll put Niles at the top of B+ just for his capture utility. Other than that, like, I think probably the next best is, like, Who's the best kid out of these 5, actually? Probably Soliel, right? Jacob and Felicia, I think, go here because of the whole they can get skills quickly thing. Soliel, then probably Nina, then I think Kaze, then Shigure, then the Troubadours. I think Forrest is probably a little better than Dwyer. Worse availability than Dwyer, though, but I think he's a better... Well... No, I'll put Dwyer above Forrest, actually. Shigure, Kaze. Yeah, I think B plus 2 looks good for the most part. These are, like, roughly ordered within the tiers, by the way. Like, if you want to argue that, like, Forrest is better than Dwyer, or, like, you know, Kaze is better than Nina, or Laszlo is better than Keaton, like, I won't argue. Like, you're probably right. So, you know, I won't argue with that, but they are just roughly ordered within the tiers. Out of the A tier, this is like the biggest. First of all, is S tier good? Yeah, S tier looks about right. This order is correct for me. So then A tier. Oh, this is gonna be the hardest one to organize. Availability-wise, the best of this tier are these 3. They're all Chapter 7 joiners. At least Silas Effie. I think Elise is probably the best unit in A tier. And then after that, it's like... Who's better, Silas or Odin? Silas is better availability by 1 chapter. They both wreck the early game pretty hard. They both kind of need investment to keep going past the mid game. I think Odin has better overall potential, though, like a higher ceiling. I'll put him above Silas. This is like slight favoritism also, just because I love Odin. But then again, who doesn't love Odin? So, you know. Mozu is like probably here. And then I think Leo, probably. Velouria. Is Velouria better than Leo? Yeah, sure, why not? Wow, worse availability, though. I'll put her below Leo. And then, like... This looks about right for A tier. Yeah, I think this looks about right. Again, maybe you could argue, like, oh, well, actually, Effie is better than Selena, or, like, you know, Silas is better than Mozu, or Velouria is better than Leo, or you could argue a lot of these positions, but, again, they're roughly ordered within the tiers. If 2 units are, like, right next to each other, you can swap them, and I wouldn't bat an eye. And I think that is going to about do it. We've been going for about 45 minutes, and that's pretty much all I have to say about the units in this game. Overall, very few units in C or D tier. Most of the units are solid or better. It's funny. This game has, like, so many busted units who break parts of the game. Like, Velouria and Ophelia do super well in the late game. Corin does super well throughout the entire game. Same with Xander, same with Camilla. Odin and Silas and Effie, like, do really well in the early game. Like, a lot of these units in S and A tier are ridiculous. But I still think that overall, this is a fairly balanced game in the sense that with pretty much everyone except for these 2 because of their bad availability and their lack of supports, except for these 2, everyone in, like, C and above is viable and can turn into a really good combat unit. Even Nyx, who I'm saying is the 3rd worst. Despite the fact that she's 3rd worst, like, she can still do really well if you put the resources into her, and I think that makes for a fun game. There's a lot of reasons why Conquest is, at the moment, my favorite Fire Emblem game, even though I haven't played too many Fire Emblem games. I'm recording this right before Engage comes out. I'm probably going to release them around the time that Engage comes out. And I'm probably going to release these 3 videos right after Engage comes out, and man, I hope Engage sort of does the same thing that this game does, which is make the class system open enough to where almost any unit can be really good, but also not so open that it becomes like 3 Houses where like anyone can be anything. Don't get me wrong, I think 3 Houses is a fun game in its own right, but the more limited reclassing of this game is really fun because it makes each unit unique, but still allows for a lot of creativity with like the partner seals and stuff, and the friendship seals. So yeah, that's why I love Conquest, and this is my opinion on the units in the game. Hope you all enjoyed this little 3-part series, and see you in the next video. Have a nice day.